Hey everyone, welcome back. This is our video number 2, the intro to the basics. I'm very excited for this video for you because we are going to workshop 3 very important foundational poses in your yoga practice: downward facing dog, plank pose, and chaturanga. Let's get moving. Downward facing dog in Sanskrit is Adho Mukha Svanasana. It's a wonderful pose. It's a full body stretch and targets specifically your shoulders, hamstrings, and calves. It's also upper and lower body strengthening. So you're gonna feel it when we get into this pose. It's a lot of work at first, but over time as your practice develops, this will become a resting pose in your practice. Let's check it out. We're gonna meet in a tabletop position. So coming onto your mats with me, we wanna stack the shoulders directly above your wrists. And remember to spread your fingers nice and wide here. Your hips are directly above your knees and your knees are hip width distance apart. So from here, as you're ready, we're just simply gonna tuck the toes and lift the hips up and back towards the back of your mat. Now pedal into your feet, bring some movement into this pose here. And as you continue to move, just begin to focus in on a few target areas of alignment. Now, starting with the hands, you want to press down actively through all 10 fingertips and also through the outer perimeter of your palm so that the center of your palm is almost lifted off the mat. Now, what that's going to do is take the pressure off of your wrists. From there, again, send your hips up and back, but don't worry so much about the heels. Whether they're almost down towards the mat or lifted high, know that over time they will get closer and closer to the mat. Now, another thing that many of us have is tight hamstrings. So bend your knees here and feel if that takes the pressure off. Know that you can bend your knees as much as you need to here. Now, from there, we're gonna work through a few common misalignments, but first, we're just gonna bring the knees back down to the mat. Whew, you might be feeling that already, so that is a full body strengthener. But remember, you can always pause the video, you can always take breaks, or you can simply watch and then practice along with me as you're ready. Now for downward facing dog, a few things happen that are common misalignments. Now the first is the head and the neck. So you'll see when I'm in this pose, my head is relaxed. So my gaze is just down at my toes, but what students often do is they try to look up. Now what this is doing is this is creating a wrench in my cervical spine, and it's also cutting off the line of energy that I have when my head is hanging heavy. Another thing that happens is kind of like dead hands. So the hand looks more like this, right? So there's not a lot of action going on here, but we're not supporting the wrists. So again, spread your fingers wide, really grip and palm that yoga mat. The final thing that I often see misaligned in down dog is the space between the hands and the feet. So think about this. Think if you were all spread out like this. Does that look like a good down dog? Well, it sure isn't a comfortable down dog. So a nice way to make sure that you've got the proper hand and foot placement is to shift forward into plank pose, which just so happens to be our next pose anyway. So as you shift forward into plank or the top of a push-up, you ideally should be able to press back to down dog without having to move your hands or feet. So make any minor adjustments that you need to until you can find this place where you're able to transition between the two poses. Good, from there, once you've done that, we'll just drop onto the knees and we'll take a little rest. Plank pose is up next. Now there are actually 2 forms of plank that you can practice. The first of which is that traditional plank pose that you just saw, or the hollow plank. Now hollow plank creates a rounding in the upper spine. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate just to give you an idea of what that looks like. So coming into the traditional plank pose, what we're gonna do is we're gonna round that upper spine and then lift the hips so they're more in line with the shoulders. So you'll see what's going on here is I'm really activating my scapular strength as well as my chest. And when the hips are lifted high like this, there's not a lot of pressure on my core or on my lower back. So this is why it's such a great plank pose for beginners. So we'll slowly come down to the mat, and now we're gonna practice all together. So we're gonna come into kneeling to practice first, and we're going to extend the arms out in front of us. You can also do this with your palms up against a wall if you find that helps as well. So from here, we're gonna round into the upper spine first, and then just pull the shoulder blades together for that traditional plank. Now round, and see how my upper spine is rounding and hollowing, and then pull the shoulder blades together. So it's not a really big movement, but you're noticing and hopefully feeling the difference in what's being activated. We're spreading through the shoulder blades here versus squeezing them together here. And now let's put this into practice together. So we're gonna bring ourselves back into plank pose, but remember that you can always drop down to your knees if you need to, because you'd rather maintain the integrity of the alignment than put unnecessary strain on the body. So coming into your plank pose, feet are hip width distance apart, spread your fingers wide, and then we're gonna round into the upper spine as we lift those hips slightly. Now your gaze is just beyond your fingertips, so try not to look ahead, try not to look all the way down, just a nice straight long line of energy, and we're gonna hold for 3, 2, and slowly release the knees and come on back to center. Nicely done. That's the first variation of plank or hollow plank. Next, we'll take our traditional plank pose. Now, the difference is traditional plank, we're gonna have a lot more pressure in your core, so it's paramount that you maintain an active and engaged core. If you don't feel ready for that, or if you don't have the strength yet, no problem, drop to your knees or stay with that hollow plank, which is a safer variation and great for beginners. Now, if you're ready, we can practice our traditional plank. Hands just beneath the shoulders, tucking the toes, straightening into the legs. Now, in your traditional plank, you want to squeeze the shoulder blades together so you have a broadening through the collarbones. Gently spiral your biceps outward to keep your arms active and engaged, and then bring your awareness down to your core. You want a strong and engaged core here, like you're flexing your abdomen. Now, a common misalignment we see here is this: hips dipping down, but we definitely don't want that. That's unhealthy for your lumbar spine. So see how when I engage my core, I fill into the small of my back. So my lower back is now straight and strong as opposed to this hip dip here. Now again, you can always bring your knees down to the mat and you'll still maintain that proper alignment through the upper body. From there, we'll just shift onto the heels, take a nice deep breath in, and we're ready for Chaturanga. Now, Chaturanga is a wonderful part of your Vinyasa practice. It's incredibly strengthening for you, particularly through the arms, the wrists, and of course the abdomen, as we just learned. So Chaturanga is not a push-up, and it's important to remember that. It requires different alignment and muscle activation. And it's also very important that you maintain proper form to prevent shoulder injury while we're performing Chaturanga. Now, I don't know about you, I'm feeling pretty warmed up, so be sure to take a break. The beauty of this video is you can always pause it if you need to. But when you're ready, you're gonna meet me back on the mat and we're gonna try out our Chaturanga today. Now, how we get into this is, if plank pose is the top of the push-up, Chaturanga is when we lower down. From there, we're gonna shift forward onto the toes and lower until the shoulders are in line with the elbows. From there, you can press back up, or you can just drop onto your knees. Now, it's very important that you hug your elbows into your side body. So in normal push-up, your elbows are splayed out to the sides, but again, you want to pull those elbows in tightly to your side body so that as you lower down, you're actually brushing the sides of your rib cage with your elbows. Now, another thing that we see a lot in Chaturanga is the gaze. So if you're looking up, again, we're going to get that wrenching through the neck. Now, a final misalignment, and this is very important to avoid to protect your shoulders, is this, and I'll demonstrate. And again, I'm demonstrating what not to do here. So coming into your plank pose, you lower halfway down, but then what happens is students will point those shoulder heads straight down, and we don't want to see that. So we always want to keep the shoulders elevated and lifted. Good. Now, from there, Chaturanga is leading you in to the next pose in your sun salutation flow, which in this case is a back bend of either Cobra or Bhujangasana or upward facing dog or Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So we'll practice Chaturanga and then move into Cobra first. So join me when you're ready and let's try it out. Coming into your Chaturanga, we are going to lower halfway down and pause there. From then, you want to release the top of your feet to the mat, followed by the legs and thighs, and then everything up through the hips, plants on the mat, and finally, we're going to lift the heart, really squeeze your elbows into your side body. Now from then, you can lower all the way down, or from here, you can tuck the toes and press back into a high plank and downward facing dog. Or you can drop down to your knees and take a break. Now the second variation is taking a Chaturanga into an upward facing dog, which we'll try here. So coming back into your plank pose, top of a push-up, we're gonna lower halfway down, shoulders are in line with the elbows, release to the tops of your feet, but then this time keep your legs straight and lifted off the mat as we lift, straightening into the arms, and everything is up off the mat except for the palms and the tops of your feet. From there, you can just tuck your toes as we lift up and back into downward facing dog. When you're done, we'll just come onto the knees and sit onto the heels, and voila, we have our Chaturanga push-up. Now remember that you can always drop to your knees if you need to for these Chaturanga push-ups. So there's no shame, there's no harm in doing a Chaturanga with your legs planted. Now the other thing you can do is place a block beneath your heart. So if I had a yoga block right here and I lowered halfway down, it would literally show me where to stop. So that's an option for you as well. Great job. Now, I recommend that you practice this video as many times as you need to feel strong and confident in these 3 important poses before moving on to the next. When you're ready to join me, video 3, we will be exploring the Warrior series. See you then.